All right, so I'm live. Happy birthday to me. Um, I This is my 60th birthday, and I'm up in the Breckenridge area, and I just went out to do some sightseeing. But really, everything is so serious right now that it's really I came up to enjoy my birthday and do something different. But it just looks like all the fun's been had at the ski resorts. Who knows if they're going to be able to uh, recover? That's it's just really strange, the weather and all. Um, I remembered as I was driving, because I started to get a little nervous. I haven't driven to the mountains myself for a number of years. Um, so, uh, so I'm up here and trying to remember how things are, because when you wake up in the morning I checked the forecasts and all before I came, because I haven't driven in the mountains in so many years. um I, I'm uh, very cautious um of the weather and stuff like that. When I was more youthful, um I drove in the mountains regularly, so I wasn't as nervous about everything as I am these days. But and so I have a few different things on my agenda, as far as like reconnecting to my old experience, to my actual experience, and testing my own boundaries, so that I can have more freedom within my own abilities, and testing my confidence level without pushing things too far. Um, because there's a number of things to factor into my personal capabilities, and you don't even realize that driving in the mountains is a really experience, is such an advantageous thing. Um, but what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I see a lot of, and I'm remembering when I first got back to Colorado here in 2018. Um, I was at a pizza place that I'm surprised is even still open. It's a really old um, pizza place in Inglewood. Um, but the fact of the matter is that as I was sitting in the pizza joint in 2018 and looking out the front window, it there was like a rumbling of the earth. I could feel it. Where I don't know if everybody else could feel it or hear it. Um, uh, but it was suddenly like I had a feeling that the mountains were rumbling and settling, like, and immediately I started to ask myself the question, gosh, I wonder if anybody's paying attention, and if, like, altitude and the height of the mountains, I wonder how often that is tested. Like, just for instance, if Mount Evans in 1996 was 14,600 feet, I don't think Mount Evans is that high, but I'm not, in other words, that's not an actual factual uh, uh, bit of information. But just for instance, if Mount Evans or any other mountain was 14,000 feet high in 1996, is it possible, or has anyone done the measurements to see here in 2024 what the actual height is? And for people who are driving in the mountains or purchasing homes in the mountains, that's important information in these days, because if it's all permafrost, um, as I'm thinking about this, as I was driving just moments ago, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, the mountains are really getting to be a precarious place to be, even more so. Like, I remember, like, in 1996, driving as a passenger with someone who was, I assume, an experienced driver. Nothing about my relationships from the past. I don't bank on anything, any information that any of the people gave me of themselves from my past. Um, so if he was an experienced driver in Colorado, and at the time I was assuming that he was, because I was trusting and naive. Um, but riding up Pikes Peak with a supposedly experienced Rocky Mountain driver, um, I was scared driving up Pikes Peak, because you could see the the crumbling of the erosion of the sides of the road. And I don't think I've ever driven up uh, to Pikes Peak myself. I'm distracted because there's something I need to do. Um, so with permafrost in the Rocky Mountains, and you can only assume that it is. I'm trying to get my what I remember about, like, snowfall and precipitation, and it's just nerve wracking. It's nerve wracking to realize that the amount of permafrost could have a lot to do, and it doesn't seem like anyone, like governors from the past, ever took into consideration um, the um, the the long-term effect of permafrost, and environmental issues and all that. And um, the if there's a lot of permafrost, that could be a lot of reason why there's been constant um, roads in Colorado are constantly being repaved and worked on. Even so, I have to ask myself, if permafrost and melting was taking place, excuse me, but way back in 1996, Um, I don't know. It all comes down again back to the same issue, and that is money. And no one from the past governorships gave any thought to, or so it seems. You know, I've started wondering who's the pawn, the and I don't want to take um I don't want to say what I was about to say, but the fact that it seems like a logical possibility that melting um eh, I don't know so much runoff, but the 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 fact that the mountains might have started melting way back in 1996, and myself as a new resident of Colorado in 1996, I had no way of comparing what was once and was in 1996, but I can compare 1996 to today. So as I was driving, I was not only testing my own limits, and I was also trying to remember so that I won't be an alarmist, however, a realist as far as the permafrost situation here in the Rocky Mountains, and with all the um, and I see the reservoirs practically dried up, and I see different water basins practically dried up. And then comes a bit of realization and enlightenment and good news to realize, well, the trees are going to start to replenish, because as the mountains melt, it becomes a water basin. It's really strange. It's strange to um it's as though the earth is completely uh going through this complete um evolutionary period. And for those of us who like the way things were with the animals and stuff, wildlife. I know I'm jumping all around, but um uh I've got so many different thoughts racing through my mind right now as far as this permafrost situation, um and what it could be causing. There's a lot of very much like road damage, and I'm trying to make my own assessment of how safe it is for myself to be driving through the mountains, or anyone actually. I'm not really a daredevil. When I was younger, I liked uh, pushing limits to a certain degree. I would never call myself a daredevil. Um, but it's sort of unnerving to realize that, like, sinkholes can happen in the mountains. We always saw like the Rocky Mountains as like solid rock, and then to realize that it's not solid rock. A lot of it was frozen ground, and when frozen ground freezes, just like ice, it expands. So, with climate change, you think, or I thought of the Rocky Mountains as and Colorado as a safe place to be, um, as far as climate change in some situations when you're watching the news and seeing um flooding in a lot of different places and stuff like that. But then to be up here in the mountains and realizing and taking into consideration that when ice freezes, it shrinks. So the ground is going to shrink, because permafrost is like a spongy, yeah. I mean, with the temperature change and everything, there's a lot of things that I think a lot of people are really scared to talk about, and to realize that the Rocky Mountains are susceptible to permafrost issues. Because again, I wasn't making a connection in my own mind hearing about permafrost in Alaska and whatnot. I wasn't making the connection, uh, about the Rocky Mountains, because again, I always thought of the Rocky Mountains as being complete solid rock, just and that the trees are growing within crevices of rock and stuff like that. So I see a lot of green and a lot of green trees growing, and but the concern not um is not a moot point. Permafrost, uh erosion and stuff like that in the Rocky Mountains is not a moot point. Um and it's really kind of more relevant than I ever imagined. And again, it's only getting up here and making those connections and remembering my own experiences and what concerns I had back then and what concerns I can see these days. Like my concerns back then what were only like in 1996 and like yeah, I'm not going to drive around Pikes Peak because there's a lot of road erosion, and you're really close to the edge of the road in a lot of places in Pikes Peak. And I haven't driven up there for a number of years. I haven't even driven with somebody up around Pikes Peak. Um, so I don't know what it's like today, but I can see road erosion as an issue as driving up through, and uh there's been more reports of uh rock falling, and obviously the concern um is a lot more these days, um, here in 2024 than in 1996. And it's important for myself to realize that when I'm making, and for anyone, because again, newcomers into the area, they don't know what things were like, or what the landscape looked like uh, 30 years ago, or has it been that long? 1996, 424, close to 30 years ago, I first moved back to Colorado. Um, so even people who have left and are coming back, I don't know. You really begin to wonder what those people were thinking. And I don't know. It's You really have to ask yourself, like, how safe is it to ride through the mountains anymore at all? Really? And I think about those YouTube videos of the South Americans and Colombia and stuff like that, where roads are just crumbling away. And to think that here in Colorado, we're just all safe because South America, that's how many, you know, that's a completely different country, continent. I don't know if Colombia is a different continent or not. But my point is that you think that, oh gosh, that's another country and that's not going to happen here. And just for myself to ride through the Rocky Mountains and to take a sort of note about what is different and what looks different, and and to notice that there's permafrost. Like it's like it almost looks like a layer of like really thick moss. Um that was once a layer of frozen material that never thawed. It was part of the foundation of uh of the Rocky Mountains, like a layer of earth that you don't think about until we're in a situation such as we are these days, uh, and realizing that the fact that the Rocky Mountains held so very much water frozen, and that water shrinks in liquid form and expands in the frozen state, and the the it's completely obvious. And even with the mood of the people in the towns, uh and say that things were always very vibrant in the mountain towns, in the tourist mountain towns, um, in the past, and 1996 was really, I think, probably a midpoint of the height of commercial building and money, uh, money making here in the Rocky Mountains. Uh, and now, like I said, it just seems like all the fun's been had. Like everybody's realizing that there's no more uh um irresponsible fun, irresponsible in terms of just um irresponsible in terms of one, the amount of building, and just the amount of spending, and not taking into consideration long-term effects on uh, on the earth. And these are the same people who they surround me on a constant basis, like they're afraid that I'll suddenly be on to the big secret or something. And I don't know. I I just, it's really kind of disappointing. It's disappointing for myself because I have to admit, I've been skiing twice in the Rocky Mountains and one time back east, and I enjoyed skiing. It's one of those things that I would have probably liked to have gotten more involved in and been able to do more of. Um, so in that way, I can't really uh, I can't really judge others um, as far as the, because I can't say that had I been one of the people who was allowed to participate. And I say allowed because it is an elitist group, and you get to either be part of or you get to be left behind. And I was always left behind. But I don't know. Again, uh, I'm not carrying the cross of those um, who they were able to experience skiing as a lifestyle, like being able to from whatever side of the coin, either living residing up in the mountains, or being of the financial elite, and able to visit the mountains and go skiing. Um, from what I see today, I want to tell everybody to get off the mountain who I saw skiing, because it just seems really dangerous. It seems like a very uh, in several different ways. Um, seems like reckless abandon. And I'm not a person who brags about being a survivalist. I don't want to be part of the team that goes out and tests limits and stands feet from the volcano or the lava. That does not interest me. Um, so I don't want to be one of the last people skiing on the mountains. And I would like send out to my children and my biological grandchildren, my biological children, a huge warning: please don't be part of uh, the crowd who refused to get off the mountain. Um, get the ride back down to the mountain if you need. I've always been a person who, I'm not a daredevil, but on the flip side of the coin, when I'm in dire need of help, I've never known how to reach out and ask for help. So that's part of my personal recovery and growth process, and I want to and need to affect my children in a manner, because they are my biological children and my essence streams through them at different times. um I want them to not be affected by that part of me from my younger years, who that never knew how to reach out and ask for help. And that stems back to my childhood. But um I need my children to not be affected or affected by my childhood that was out of my control. Um, it seems like almost a ghost town up here, where in the Breckenridge area, and it's still technically, technically it's still ski season, and this the many of the slopes are closed. But the town is like a ghost town. There's hardly anybody here, and I've never I've driven to Vale was usually my destination when I drove through the mountains, and I would drive at different times, never in dead of winter by myself, or even with my first daughter. But um but I've never seen the mountain towns like they are right now. They're like ghost towns. I just rode through Breckenridge. It's like a ghost town. I'm here in Dillon. It's like a ghost town. Um, so I think that everybody needs to make decisions for themselves as far as this whole climate change thing, and to be as connected to the most up to date information in whatever area that you are. And so that is why I have decided to be and stay mobile as I possibly can. Um, and to get as much real time information uh, by being mobile and as I can for the uh, for my own information data, and for that I can share with others, information that I can observe honestly and compare, uh, from 1996, at least here in the Colorado, in the mountainous area. I can't give information or comparison on like the plain out on the eastern plains or west of uh the Great Divide. But I can gather data for myself and to convey and relay to others in what I can see honestly as a comparison and something to pay attention to. And then to bring up the conversation that I was having with someone, because I think I've talked about this. This is a different rock, but I had found a black rock when I first came back to Colorado in 2018. I can't remember where I found it. It was not part of the rock collection that I had that I brought with me to Colorado. Um, but this rock was, and I still have it, but it's about this big around, and but there's cuts in the rock, and it was completely black, and it had angular cuts in it. For the most part, it's like a circular shape, but with ruts and cuts in it. And um and I kept it. Why I picked it up in the first place, I can't answer that question. It's one of those things where my eyes were drawn to it, and I feel like, okay, let me pick that up. And I put it on my stove, and I've talked about this a few times before. I put it on my stove and heated it up, and it ricocheted at about eye level, interestingly enough. Um, it, it ricocheted around my apartment, which was, uh, uh, I didn't expect it to do that. And why I even had the idea to put it on my stovetop to heat it up is like beyond. I don't know why I decided to do that anyway. And then to consider that it was actually at eye level as it ricocheted around the room, or around my apartment. And once it stopped dispersing the energy it stored internally, whatever that source of energy was, um, I put it in one of my plants, and it was so black, and it looked the same as when I put it on the stove, but I would look for it. I would forget where I put it because I had so many plants. I've scaled down the number of plants that I have in my apartment uh, a little bit, but I would, for whatever reason, I would pick it up and just kind of look at it and study it and just kind of wonder upon it to because it's the reaction that the rock had when I heated it up has been, an ongoing sort of question in my mind of what was the rock made of? Is it just iron ore? Does iron ore react like that? Um, and I don't know what iron ore looks like or feels like. My visual is that iron ore has a metallic, um because of what I see iron as. it as a metallic sort of look, and this rock didn't look metallic. It just looked like a black rock. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, or it's still quizzical to me. And what makes it even more quizzical today, uh, than back then, which was approximately a year and a half ago, is that now the rock has completely evolved into, it's not black at all anymore. It's looks like, um it's got colors like pink and crystals, tiny crystals, and a little bit of gold, and I'm trying to remember the terminology that I learned in the ninth grade, which was a very long time ago. So forgive me for not being able to remember. Um, it has a completely different appearance, and I know it's the same rock. So the last time that I looked for the rock and it was still black was probably like maybe 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, and it was still black. And I was like, gosh, I keep forgetting which plant I'm put this back into. I want to remember, because I don't want to lose this rock. I don't want to throw it out mistakenly, as I replant or repot different plants, to, at the change of season. Um, and I would put it in different planters without realizing it. And uh, I went back recently again, and it's probably been, like I said, like 8 months maybe ago, because at different times I'm like, gosh, I gotta think about, I want to find my rock. It's almost like I start missing these different things that I don't want to lose, because I want to know the truth of. Um, and I was like, gosh, I was looking in my one plant that I was certain that I put it back into, because after a few times losing track of which plant I put it in, um, the last time I was like, okay, I'm putting this, my favorite plant. This is my favorite rock, and I'm going to put it in this plant. So I was almost certain. I was very certain that I put it in this one plant, which was my favorite plant. And I was looking through to go and get to just look at it, and I was like, gosh, where's my rock? Where, it's not in here. And I picked up the one that was in there. It's like, this looks like the same shape, the same size, but it doesn't look, because it's not black. It's like pinks and crystal, white, tiny white crystals, and slightly brown, and um and I was like, this can't be the same rock. I've never ever heard of a rock being changing from black to something completely different. And then uh and the sides of the rock, the angles that it had, the sharp edges, as part of the ruddiness, that it had when it was black. They're all they're all there, but now they're softer. If I had brought it with me, I would be able to show the rock, but um, all of that has to do, and a real and true and honest answer as to whether that is the same rock and a rock evolves in such a way, because as I was telling somebody else, it's strange because I'm like, could this be the same rock? The the soil in the plant that I had put it in became much richer and darker. Richer as in like more healthy, more and that plant was doing really started doing really well at one point in time. It's died back a little bit now, but um, I just think it's an interesting question, and to know the real information. I personally believe it's the same rock, and it answers a lot of questions as far as um, it, it it comes in line with the whole permafrost thing and the uh and the evolution of the earth and the changing landscaping and everything. So I just want to it's a question that a lot of people don't want to face. They don't want to face the thing about permafrost. They don't want and then of course there's always the geologic societies who don't want this novice person to be sharing information that could be actually true, and all those kind of things come into place. Being able to share information, or even being able to form a theory and going publicly speaking about a theory, or asking the question and then further contemplating once you accept that it is the same. um and I feel like I'm close to that place of accepting that it's the same rock, um because I had asked the question and started to form a theory about Pluto, and started wondering about that. And one of my first questions when I started wondering about Pluto was that I really remember Pluto being a black planet, like it was black when it was presented, uh, photos of it in in my textbooks in earth science class. I remember it being black, and then here more in recent years it's that whitish sort of speckled with the big heart uh um shape on it. And so it's like, is it possible that, like, as Pluto has been making its 250-year uh, revolution around the sun, has it been shedding an outer layer, um, and that being this black rock, and that my rock was part of that shedding of the outer shell of Pluto. I think it's really possible, and I think it's interesting, and I'm not afraid to explore that theory however, finding other people who want to allow you in the circle of discussion, you being such a novice, and those kind of hierarchical elitist attitudes. um it's obviously an obstacle, but I think it's really kind of absurd, because they should be those elitist circles of geologists and NASA and all. They should be looking for more people, more participants, more information, and different viewpoints to be able to formulate a realistic what is going on answer, and how we can, other than just being individual people who see and can compare based on our own experiences, and being um, on the move from the different climate change things, that there can be more groups of people equipped with uh real information, and really begin to share the information, and be on the lookout for other individuals who don't have the information. Or I'm not somebody who likes the idea of leaving people behind. I've been left behind a lot, and I've been making as much effort as I can to to help when I see someone who looks like they're in need. And then again, there's a distinction to be made in regard to my own experiences, and realistic cultural differences, that I don't want to be uh I don't want to make foolish decisions, while some with because some people are still playing a game of cultural cultural entitlement and cultural battle, and those people are still making those same threats, and trying to convince me that they have my children, and stuff like that. So there's a constant distinction, and a constant um assessment, as I'm trying to help others. I'm trying not to be biased, but I'm also trying not to be the fool of it being played as a pawn in cultural um, games that I've been used as a pawn in so many. Um, and my own safety, and my own children's safety, physical, intellectual, and emotional safety, has been uh, we've been taken advantage of by within cultural politics, um, and keeping us apart from each other, has those cultural politics, and cultural entitlements, and cultural differences, and to stay aware of all that it's really a very precarious situation to be in, um, while I'm trying to, determine, um, where my children are and being able to reach my own biological children. And within all this mess of climate change and again the the cultural politics, that game is still being played, and my thinking is I can't believe how absurd these people are for constantly needing to be the cultural and still they're still maintaining or making all efforts to maintain sort of hostage situations and I and my children still being their target for their for the cultural politics that they've been playing for centuries. Um, it's really disconcerting. It's a precarious, like I said, a precarious situation to be in as myself identifying as a Christian at all times, no matter where I am. Uh, um, it's upsetting it's and it's exhausting. I'm trying and my